Primitive Life, a novel by Louise Richardson. Chapter 6, Usefulness. Following Mrs. Sharp's arrest for killing Roy Nordstrom, life settled into a routine again on the Habsburg, Texas campus of Central Texas State University, as routine as things could be after a murder of one of their own, plus the unimaginable tragedy of 9/11. Harvey. Wally fucking Parkinson. Wally fucking Parkinson. They picked him to be the new department chairman. There really is no justice in this world. God, am I going to have to kill him too? Who am I, Richard III? Nordstrom just fell into my lap. Otherwise, I would have waited some years for him to move on. He might have left for Harvard or someplace, the way his career was going. But Wallace Eugene Parkinson? He's going nowhere, which means I'm going nowhere forever. This is really not fair. Why can't I catch a break for once? Why can't Harvey Llewellyn get a piece of the action? Maybe I can get a piece of it, I mean. The Viking was working on another book. Perhaps his widow would let me finish it. That's it. She could probably use the money, and I'd get some return for my efforts. I can write that kind of crap. I can bring some real finesse and science to the table. Harvey, you brilliant bastard, it's time to make lemonade. Harvey Llewellyn put on his best cloak of diplomacy to approach the grieving widow. What the hell, he thought. If I'm going to be the department chairman someday, I will need to dust off these political skills anyway. So he offered Fay his condolences and vowed to make himself useful to her in her hour of need. He would help her finish Roy's last book in progress. He would even offer the entire proceeds of its sales to her so she could meet funeral expenses, get back on her feet, and get on with her life. Of course, he figured she would probably let him keep half of all advances and royalties after all. But his proposed generosity was the politic thing to do. And from now on, he would be as politic as hell. Fay. And Roy always thought Harvey was so self-absorbed he would never reach out to help anyone. It just shows how wrong you can be about people. Of course, I'll introduce him to Roy's publisher. To be honest, I could use the income. The royalties from the first book are bound to dwindle after a couple of years. A new posthumous book could actually be more popular than the first. Roy, you fucker. You owe me another book. Couldn't keep it in your pants, could you? You couldn't camp out on the beach without bopping some silly co-ed. You left me alone, you bastard. Damn it, I miss you. Left me alone with this damned dissertation. Guess I'll need to finish it now. Harvey Llewellyn. I never really noticed him before. He does have a kind of teddy bear quality to him. Wonder if he's gay. I don't think he is. In the weeks to come, Harvey and Fay kept busy sorting out transcripts of Roy Nordstrom's notes. They became quite an efficient team, with the enthusiastic assistance of Roy's secretary, Mrs. Alvarez. Fay didn't think Roy had nailed that one, perhaps the only woman around whom he had not nailed. Perhaps Mrs. Alvarez was too old for Roy's taste. Of course, she was only a year or two older than Fay herself. But then, it was probably the college girls that got Nordstrom all hot and bothered anyway. Harvey Llewellyn turned out to be a real go-getter, far from the slacker reputation he had engendered. Harvey whipped Roy's notes into shape added valuable observations of his own, and took seriously Faye's suggestions about the organization and presentation of the material in the book. It was probably transference, Dr. Llewellyn knew, that made Mrs. Nordstrom grow fond of him so soon after Dr. Nordstrom's death, but Harvey was not above using her affection to his own advantage. Harvey came to realize he was not above anything anymore. Leah. Cheryl, look. Is that Mrs. Nordstrom eating with Dr. Llewellyn? They've been awfully chummy lately. What's up with that? I recognize those notebooks. Roy was writing in them the last time I was with him, you know, before the field trip and everything. He said they were for his new book. I even did some research on the web for him. A lot of good that did me. Well, life goes on. Mrs. Roy has certainly bounced back, hasn't she? Look at those two. There's more than publishing going on there. Oh, Cheryl, don't be so naive. I wonder if they were this friendly before Roy kicked the bucket or got kicked by the frying pan. Very curious. Sheriff Hal Henderson's wife, Jan, finally got word about their son, Dennis. It was Dennis's roommate who found the Hendersons' Galveston telephone number and called to say Dennis was still alive, if not so well. Dennis had begged Brian not to contact the folks. He knew his mom would only worry about his severe injuries, and his dad would have said it was Dennis's own fault for being gay or something like that. Brian loved Dennis so much. He could not let the clouded judgment of major trauma keep him from doing what he knew was the right thing. He got the phone number from Dennis's wallet and called Jan Henderson. The sheriff's wife then called her husband and pleaded with him to visit Dennis in the hospital, hysterically on pain of divorce, on pain of her suicide. Hal dreaded the reunion. He had written the kid off as damaged goods, damaged before the towers fell, damaged by perversity. Only for his wife's sanity would he approach the stray youth. As brave as Hal was, it was the most fearful thing he had ever done. Sheriff Henderson. This way, Mr. Henderson, she says. I follow the nurse down the hospital corridor. She stands beside a doorway to let me pass. The bed by the window, she directs me. I go there and see a mummy, a clean white mummy in traction. There's barely enough face showing, but I know it's Dennis. Yeah, that's him, I tell the nurse. She leaves us. Boy, you okay? I ask him. Dad? He mumbles. Yeah, you gonna be all right? Lost a leg, he says weakly. I don't know why, but I choke up a little. Oh, well, you rest. I'll be back tomorrow. Sure, Dad, he says, drifting off with a little smile. Are you his dad, the sheriff? A faggy voice asks from behind me. I turn to see a skinny kid with a lip ring. He was hoping you would come to see him. I say something like, well, I was in town anyway. You're all he's talked about since he's been in the hospital. I notice the kid is English or something. I'm Brian, his roommate. He extends his hand. I see it, but I don't want to touch it. He drops it and says, I'm from Bristol. Brian from Bristol. Bristol, England, that is. That's fine, is all I can muster. You may not realize it, but your son's a hero. That right? Saved a room full of office workers, including a pregnant woman. He was going back for more when part of the stairwell collapsed on him. Firemen carried him down the street. He would have loved that if he was conscious. What? I knew what he meant, but I didn't think it was funny. I'm afraid he's shy a limb now. Could be worse, I guess. Yep, I guess. You sitting by while he sleeps? Nah, I'll come back in the morning. Then I remember who I am and turn to the little punk. You be gone then, you hear? He just stares me down like I'm from Mars. I blow air and walk away. I can't stop shaking my head. This is what my son has come to. A faggy foreigner roommate, hooked in the mouth like a flounder. I had the feeling Dennis would amount to nothing. It was fur and skin and mother's milk that got tender baby through those first few months with the knuckle-walking chimps. She came to love her new tribe, although she was frustrated when she came to the time in her life when she could stand and try to walk. She would use a tree or a bush or a termite mound to pull herself up. It seemed the most natural thing in the world for her. Without anyone's help, she took her first steps. Soon she was toddling all around to the horror of the troop. If she was vertical for more than a few seconds, her adopted mother, whom she thought of as new mama, or an adopted auntie or other adopted relative, would pull her to the ground. They couldn't understand why such a straight posture didn't make her uncomfortable or cause her pain. It made them uncomfortable to watch her. She looked like they did, more or less. She seemed as smart as any other baby, but she just couldn't get with the program. Standing tall was fine for peering over the high grasses, for looking out for approaching danger, or for showing where you were when you were lost. But it just wasn't a natural thing to do all the time. It could not be healthy. When the youngsters would hit her or shove her down, tender baby would stand defiantly and hold her ground. She could stand and walk for minutes, hours at a time, so she was a freak in their midst. However, they soon discovered she could see things they couldn't: snakes, leopards, food. She became quite useful. As she grew older, she became useful to the entire troop. Over the years, the others tried to imitate her. They never succeeded for long. The chimps came to see the advantages of upright walking, but it was a painful ordeal. In this troop, a male walking chimp would have shot right up the political ladder to alpha in no time at all. As it was, though, Tall One, as Tender Baby came to be known, was able to make a place for herself in chimpanzee society. When she was of a mateable age and size, she was courted by the flower of male chimpdom. She could have her pick of the prospective dominant males, to the awe and envy of all the young females. But she liked the third-ranked male groomer the best. He was calm and confident and made her feel at ease. They mated constantly for 3 days. Of course, he mated with others as well. These chimps were even less monogamous than Tall One's own group. She and Groomer had a bond beyond mating, which was a good thing because no living infant ever came from their couplings. There was one painful miscarriage which sent her into weeks of depression, and then she was fine. She had the love and attention of the troop. Food and water were plentiful, and she never felt better in her life. End of Chapter 6. Usefulness. Primitive Life, a novel by Louise Richardson.